All right, with the filmmaking team of First Time Time Machine. We got Jay, and who is the writer director, and we got Paulo, who is the cinematographer. Oh, sorry, Jose, who is the cinematographer and producer. I apologize. Paulo is the other producer, right?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So I was just talking to Jose about his football shooting expertise at Ohio State. You guys met Ohio State way back when?
Yeah, I think the cinema department mostly existed originally because they were shooting football games, so they had all that equipment. So
Yeah.
why not have a? But yeah, I mean, yeah, Ohio State is a giant school, either the first or second biggest in the country. USC and OSU usually trade positions. Ohio State's probably even a bigger football town and
Yeah.
university than, so it drives a lot of everything else, of course.
Yeah. I was just saying, I asked Jose this first question. I asked him, "Do you hate Michigan?" And he right away said, "Yep."
It's required as an alum.
The first film festival I ever got into was at Ann Arbor in Michigan, and
Right.
one of the things I got was a camera strap with a big Michigan. I still have it. It's blue
Yeah.
and yellow Michigan, which I could never take out in public in Ohio, but I
Yeah.
put it on my Super 8 camera sort of briefcase. Yeah.
So what was it? A couple years back, you guys lost to Michigan but won the national championship. Was that kind of a bittersweet year?
Yeah, that I mean, yes. That's
Yeah.
happened before too. There have been coaches who could win the bowl games but could never beat Michigan, which was
Yeah.
kind of the deal until just this last year. And usually, if you can't beat Michigan, that's it. They always end up with
You
a
guys
better
were
record.
you guys had a run though for like 6 years until Harbaugh cheated, and then he won, right? So with
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
videotaping, another thing that's not talking about enough, that I was talking about Woody Hayes, right? Like he choked
yeah,
the player on
yeah,
national TV, and it's like, how is this not like a movie yet? And then the
yeah,
Harbaugh
it should
scandal, like
be.
they cheated,
yeah.
they 100% cheated,
Yeah,
right?
because Art Schlichter turned out, who was the quarterback who threw the bad pass.
Yeah.
Turned out he is still a horrible gambling addict. So did he throw that game? He threw the bad pass. Was that an accident? I mean, that's been his future.
Yeah.
And just
Yeah.
like Harbaugh, like after the big cheating scandal, they said, "Oh, we don't need to cheat." And then like him and all his principal staff left
They took
to go
off.
off to
They
the
went to the
NFL. Yeah,
NFL.
so they're not around to have to deal with the rules.
Yeah. Fuck San
Mhm.
Diego, the Charge, or no, now they're the LA Chargers. Screw that team. A bunch
Oh,
of
yeah, yeah,
cheaters. All right, I'm
yeah.
sorry about that. Sorry to segue. Let's talk about First Time Time Machine. So you guys met. It's so amazing. You guys met at Ohio State in the late '70s, and you're still kind of working together, making movies. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that's
Yeah.
one of the things for me. Uh, back was a summer class that I met Jay. I think it was early '80s, and it was a film called Beyond Dream's Door, and that was the first film that I worked with a director. And to this day, and it
Oh,
seems
really?
like over the years, like it's like wow, it's like back in school in many ways. But that's a huge thing for me as far as working on a project. Getting the chance to work with Jay again and just have a great time making a film.
All right, so Jay, talk to me about the coming up with the idea, writing the script for First Time Machine. I like this story a lot. It's like the first half is them talking, but it's very engaging, and it kind of blew me away because usually, like, the first 7 minutes of a film, two like four people having a conversation is not really cinematic, but you kind of made it work with the, like, I didn't know what he was talking about, but it made sense.
Right. Well, that's yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, well, it's based on a Frederick Brown very short story. Depending on where you see it reprinted, it's like 1 or 2 pages. So I read it while on a brief vacation with my wife when I decided not to get a massage. I figured I would just lay out and read. I bought a copy at a used book fair. And I had read Frederick Brown stories, but I never had a collection. So I just started reading a couple stories, and it was one of the, I don't know, maybe the first 5 stories I read. And I was like, this would make a great short movie, but why would I do that? And then, walking back after reading it, I started thinking like, well, what if they're all black guys except the time traveler? And I don't know why I thought that, but then I was like, well, now I have a movie. So yeah, that was just kind of although the cast were like, "Oh man, you should make it a feature." And we've shown this that this is the ninth film festival it's been involved with, and it won one as best science fiction film.
Yeah.
Uh, but the cast members and some of the people I met at these film festivals are like, "Oh man, make a feature, make a feature." I
Yeah.
was like, no, reading this, it was never a feature to me, even though some of their feature ideas were good. But no, this seemed like a short film. And yeah, I mean, it's always sort of a challenge to do something that shouldn't be cinematic or interesting and make it interesting. The short story, the time machine is small. That's another unique thing about it. However he made the time machine, the short story is not explained at all. And the ending of the short story is just that the one guy goes back, kills his grandfather, and then doesn't exist. And just the remaining guys are there. And the doctor says, "Hey, here's the first time machine." So all the rest of it I created. So all the original stories in there, but then I wanted to kind of do more with it. There've been, plenty of time travel stories since this one was written. And I just felt that wasn't quite enough. But with the kind of racial element, so then I'd had this idea for a long time about using mathematics and radiation, radioactive decay to be able to identify a very specific moment. And if you could do that, you could go back to it. So that's kind of all me. And I just wanted to explain enough of it that it sort of makes sense, because the guy says in the story, "Look, I can't explain this in 5 minutes. It's taking me my whole life." And the guy goes, "Well, just give us, give us the shorthand, the idiot's version." So that was just enough of the idiot's version, to go. But I'd always had this thought that like you can specifically time certain things to the exact moment going back. This story originally in this movie don't deal with, well, could you go to the future? In some ways it's more credible if your time machine does one or the other, not both. So anyway, in this story, it was always a small thing, which I thought was interesting. And it just deals with the past. So then the drama is about the past also. The lead guy, Smedley, who, feels his grandfather, who he has probably never even met, ruined his and his whole world, And so this is what he would do. His dream of time travel is to go back and wipe himself out, weirdly enough.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks. Yeah, that was like it is interesting. So, but I want to talk about that scene too, right? Because I want to know, because you guys made it very cinematic. You did. And first of all, who created the time machine? Who built it and created it?
This guy, Caius, I'm going to forget his middle name, Caius Duncan. I had worked on a pirate film that I did the music for a son of a friend of mine, Rick Moses. And Adam had done a movie and knew that I did music, and I'd met Adam in an editing room, and he was literally like this big. I told him when I was working on his pirate movie, I said, "The last time I was in an editing movie with you, you were this big." Because I remember his mom brought him into the editing room. "Hey, here's our new son." So he hired me to do music on this film, and his pirate film obviously had a lot of kind of production design elements. So when I needed to build this time machine, I had another guy who kind of owed me a favor, who does production design. And just frankly, he let me down. So then I contacted Adam and I said, "Hey, your production designer, you had some really great stuff. Who would you recommend?" I talked to his production designer, and he was like, "Oh, this was all Caius, so talk to Caius." So Caius, who works on big shows, was like really into it. Everybody, the couple production designers I talked to were all really into just the idea of what would a time machine be if it was small and this stuff. So Caius asked me like an actor would, which is great. I had only had one other production designer ever do this. They talk to you like an actor would. What's my motivation? He goes, "It isn't a mad scientist."
Yeah.
I said, it's a prototype. He's not a mad scientist, but this is a prototype the guy built on his own. There's a radioactive element inside of it, so it has to have like a shielding for that. And then there's devices that to sort of increase or decrease, basically just open and shut the shielding. One of my original ideas was that it had to be non-electrical, because radiation and electricity don't necessarily get along. So it would basically almost be mechanical. It had to be like a wind-up. I kind of dropped that and didn't go into that very deeply. So then he started showing me some sketches, and I said it should have like handles, like a bicycle or something you hold on to, and then your fingers should connect, to each pole. So you got to connect to each pole so it'll go clear through your body from one hand to the other. And so he built all that in maybe a week, but it's made out of real metal. I mean, that thing is really heavy. And in the original script, he was supposed to destroy the time machine. We went back and like just break it up. But I was like, this is an impossible thing to destroy. And the guy, Caius, who built it, said I wanted to make it bulletproof because I knew it would be traveling. So it's got real weight to it, which is, I think, part of why the actors, they don't have to pretend it's heavy or pretend it's important, because it looks like something somebody really built out of real metal. And it is welded and, kind of burnished metal. And so as it developed, I interacted with him and he goes, this is great. Because usually they just go like, oh, give me a laser gun. And that's it. That's all the input he gets. Maybe he doesn't get a script. Maybe he does. Usually they won't hand out full scripts on big movies. So you just get the scene. So he was excited because he had interaction with the director who cared about what he was doing. And I think he really did a great job. And it was so important that looked like a real something or other. Then Jose, the original story, it's kind of set in the guy's lab or his garage or something. He's not working out of any plant, Granger. Jose said, I just said, could you find, some labs? I have helped teach some summer classes, kind of inspired by the summer class where Jose and I met at Ohio State at Bowling Green University. You have labs, go around and see if you can find us some cool lab. He went around campus, took a bunch of different pictures. And there was one really cool lab which had all these huge vents and these windows. But that would have, frankly, we probably would have had to shoot in there 3 days or more just because the windows lit the room so much that trying to match it as the day ran out would have probably been impossible. So it's a real lab with a real thing. So I think that sells the idea that it's all, the setting feels authentic. So that helps sell the idea that the time machine might work. And then, the lights of the different characters are lit kind of specific to how.
That's what I wanted to talk to Jose about.
Yeah.
Because you got the red in the back, like the red and the blue on the one side, you got the green on the other side. Well, and then you got there's some like slight camera movements. You always have the kind of the time machine kind of there, like it's always kind of on the bottom and the surface. So we're always reminded of it. Talk to me about like kind of lighting that this set.
Yeah, I sent a lot of that lab is here on the Bowling Green State University campus, so I got access to it. Then I shot a bunch of tests. I always, back in the early days, enjoyed gelling a lot of lights for color, looking at some of the Hammer films and things like that. And then again, conversation with Jay after reading the script and going through some ideas. I had these RGB CYM lights and I started playing around with them and just trying to get the different colors to try to evoke some different emotions, especially with the reds and then the cooler colors, and mixing them up a little bit instead of just having just normal white light. And I felt it also worked within the environment because you would have like blinking lights on or something that was going on in the area. So I thought it also fit a lab that what it would probably look like. And it was very close because I remember years ago I got a tour of where my dad worked, and it basically was only lit by whatever lights were on. They weren't LED lights, but they're colored lights or shields over them, and it was pretty cool. So that's kind of with it. Kind of that's what I was thinking about when I was doing that. I always loved these little slight camera moves too, but working with Jay, he has these great ideas and makes it really great to work with because he gets me excited about the scene or the whole movie and makes me want to try different things and experiment, play around with a bunch of stuff.
The Smed Anthony Baldessare, he's lit. The primary light behind him is green, and when he goes back in time, he's green. So we've sort of set you up for the environment that's where he's going. When you see him back there, it's just green in his face. The red is obviously sort of a danger color or whatever. That's behind Granger. The framing of when we include certain people and when we don't, and when we're just on the time machine. Usually with Granger, we see the time machine with him because he is that's him. That's an extension of him. So yeah, there's a lot of planning out of how to keep the visuals interesting and different, and for a reason. You know, you want a style that's expressive. You don't want just cool angles to be cool. They need to be cool and expressive, or else they're just distracting. And the
Yeah,
time
well, they
machine,
have to serve the story, right? Just like
yeah,
your structure designer said, like
yeah,
everything's got to serve the story, right?
right. And the time machine, of course, has its own little lights on it, so it's very
Yeah.
specifically lit with these little, sort of little tiny, almost like desk lights. So whenever we move the camera, I would flip those lights so they'd be aimed at the camera. They're not necessarily really aimed at the time machine, but those are always constantly in frame, kind of reminding us of that too. So that the miniature, the time machine, has its own key lighting, just like the actors do.
Yeah, 100%. Well, it is a character, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's called the first time machine. So
Yeah. But to go
it's
back to what you're talking about, I did have the question of, are you going to make this? Is this like a proof of concept? Is there a bigger story? But I guess there's not.
a bigger story might be that we make a number of shorts like this, literary adaptations, and try
With
to
each character.
not necessarily related to the time machine, although you could. There's other Frederick Brown time machine stories, but to basically make a kind of, I hate to just say Twilight Zone, but that kind of series
Yeah.
out of it, where there's a connection in terms of like some of the actors would return, Jose, hopefully, me. So there would be a consistency. You know, when people put these anthologies together from different filmmakers, the problem is, even though the stories are always totally different, they just feel like completely different worlds. There's no consistency or style to even a collection of shorts. You know, a TV show has different episodes, but there's a house style, and that's what's lacking. But I mean, it's a standalone short. I mean,
Well,
yeah,
there's usually a thematic through line, right? I guess like that's what makes them kind of together. I guess the trilogies, these trilogy movies are these anthology films, right?
right, right. Or there's some, you know, if it's, well, one writer or different writers, yeah, that they're different, but they feel the same somehow. They've got the
Yeah,
same kind of point. They don't all have to be about the same things, but there's some overall
yeah.
through line. You know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel that they're all a part of, you know.
So what are you trying to say with this film?
What am I trying to say with this film? First off, it's a story about the people, so I made it about the people. So Smed is kind of a lonely white guy who hates his family, who ends up almost feeling like he's a black guy. These just happen to be his friends, maybe because they're so different than the family he hates. Um, is he? I guess he's I don't know if he's really totally evil. I mean, he is taking his one friend, Granger, and urging him to make a time machine. And he knows that if this really worked, he could go back and, you know, change his life for the better as he sees it. So yeah, he is sort of exploiting Granger, and so when Smed then removes himself from the picture, nobody else remembers him, but Granger becomes kind of a bitter guy, and particularly bitter about white people, frankly, you know, because he didn't have that personal connection. I mean, I think we all, whether we get along with women or black people or any race or type of person, I meet people who never knew their grandparents, and they have a real thing about old people. I mean, there's just your life, what's in it, whether you have a dog, you end up loving dogs, or you have a cat, or you never have
Oh, that's
pets.
interesting.
All these things affect who you are.
Yeah,
So that's what I wanted to show at the end, was that Granger, initially for the audience sake, seems like he's just, oh, well, now he's created, you know, this wonderful thing. He's cured cancer, and his friend like kept him from really curing cancer. But it's both kind of better and worse than that, because without your best friend, your life would be different. You might be a better person if you've got a bad best friend,
yeah.
or you might be worse. So, and I'd never done a film with primarily African American cast, and I thought I might get even better actors, because these type of roles aren't necessarily available. The story isn't told. We had a black casting director, just as it turned out. But yeah, they were all really excited by it, because it's like, oh man, a story about, you know, a African American, a black person inventing time travel. Well, weirdly or interestingly enough, and I don't think I consciously knew this, Philip K. Dick Film Festival, which actually showed this film at 3 of their different festivals, both in England and in New York. The guy said, well, you know, there's a black scientist in Canada, and he was actually at our festival last year who's trying to invent a time machine. And he was like, he thought I kind of based it on that guy.
We're
I
okay. First of
said,
all, I'm in Canada,
yeah,
so where is he? And I want to talk to him. So and who is
exactly.
he? Yeah.
I know. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry he's not here this year. That would have been great. But I
Do you
said,
know his name is?
what? I
Do you
do.
know his name?
I could get his name. Yeah. And it turned
Yeah.
out I probably had run across that guy someplace, but my general concept was
Yeah.
intact before that. But this guy just thought, oh yeah, of course you know this guy, and that's what he based it on. I was like, no, I'm not trying to say he's a racist or potentially
Yeah.
racist. I hope he wouldn't. I almost hope he doesn't think it's based on him.
Okay,
But
so I gotta ask, like the one character with the suit,
mhm.
he's got like a blood stain in the first scene, and then he doesn't have the blood stain in the last scene.
He does actually, because the guy
Does?
actually he does. Yeah, you
Okay.
need to watch it on a bigger screen. That's
Oh,
actually
now I
his.
see it. Okay, I'm looking at it on the screen right now. I see it because it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
just a different angle, I guess. When I first
yeah, yeah.
watched it, I was like, "Where's his blood stain?" Now I see it.
Right, right. It takes
Yeah.
you a moment to notice it. It's actually kind of a chocolate stain. He says my kid threw up on me at one point, and that's what that is. Like
Okay.
he went rushing off to work after his kid threw up on him, and he didn't have time to
I thought
notice.
that this was kind of like a an Easter egg of like the next chapter or something like that.
I mean, the next chapter that
Yeah.
Granger West came up with, he goes like, well, you know, he could have built a second time machine, and then all his buddies go back to try to stop him from doing this. And I was
Yeah.
like, that's interesting, but that does kind of cut the weight out of he spent his whole life building one, but just happens to have another one laying around.
Yeah.
Uh, but it's a good development if you want to go that way. And it would make sense for the friends to try to save their own
Yeah.
friend. And maybe they do
Exactly.
in a feature.
So, Jose, what do you think? Do you think that you guys should make another chapter of this film?
I personally think you can. And people have told me too that have seen it that they could see it as a longer form. But our chapters, I think, are really cool. I think it's very interesting. I remember when I first read the story, again, that one page, it was short, but how Jay added to it and everything. Put some backstory, the characters. I really love this story. I think it's very interesting, and especially with Smedley, who, I mean, thinking of all the work in the years to have that being made, but already knew what he was going to do with it should he be successful.
Yeah.
And then I think it has a lot of room for backstories and all that. So I would be actually very happy to see more on that personally.
Yeah.
I think there's one or two. When we bought the rights to the story, Barry Maltzberg, who is Frederick Brown's agent, Maltzberg, sci-fi fans can look him up and they will know who he is. Maltzberg told me as we're buying this story, he goes, there's two different endings to this story. I'm like, what? He goes, yeah, Fred wrote, there's two versions which were published. And so then I'm looking all over the place to find the other version of this story to figure out like, well, I've added to the ending, but if Frederick Brown himself had an idea for a different ending. So I'm looking and looking and looking, and Jose and I are both like buying other collections of Frederick Brown stories. And finally, then when we're signing the deal with Barry, I said like, there's another story which is similar, which starts with the same words, Gentleman, the First Time Machine, but otherwise they're totally different stories. There's this, but in the other one, a guy invents the time machine, and they debate about, well, if you change time, do you wipe out everything? Once you open that door, it's like a
The
balloon.
butterfly
It's just
effect, I
all
guess,
right,
right?
right. But I mean, everything would be wiped out. And the one guy's like, well, maybe, but maybe not. And there's really only one way we're ever going to find out, guys, anyway. So they flip the switch. And then the last sentence of the story says, there was no problem. The time machine still existed, but nothing else did.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the story. And I forget what there's one or two other, there's a fascinating story, I think called The Corridor of Mirrors, which Brown wrote about a guy who's discovered time travel, which essentially makes him immortal. But he goes, the world is not ready for this great machine, so I've got to continue to live for the day that mankind can use this properly. And so he, like any immortal man, every once in a while has to like jump to a different time, basically go back in time to meet different people in a different place so that he won't be outed for being this eternal being. It's called Corridor of Mirrors. It almost seems initially like it would completely unfilmable. But then I started thinking about it. It's like, well, maybe it's not unfilmable. So there's 3 Frederick Brown time travel
Oh,
stories. Yeah.
okay. And you guys are buying the rights to the film, to the like. It's not public domain yet. It's still like you still
They're
have to buy
still
rights.
right. They'd still have to buy rights,
Yeah.
which we did from Frederick Brown's one son is still alive, and there's Barry Malzberg sadly has died now, but there's a new. It's still an ongoing. Some Brown
Gotcha.
works are public domain or claim to be. There's a clearinghouse which is credited in the movie for something like the Science Fiction Society of America, which is a great location. It was basically created by people knowing that there's a lot of science fiction writers who have like 5 or 10 stories published in magazines that then disappear. Nobody knows how to find the rights, and some people assume they're public domain, which they're not. So it's a clearinghouse very specifically for short science fiction related material to put you in touch with the people who own the rights so you can legitimately get the stories. So the woman named Alice Spielberg, no relation, said, yeah, people buy a lot of Frederick Brown shorts and try Barry Malzberg. So that was really lucky. Right now I'm actually interested in, along with Jose, making a Barry Malzberg short, which he wrote called, the story is has a different title. It's Across the Line. So that may be the next thing we do. It's not time travel, but it's also kind of a limited setting piece.
Perfect. Well, guys, I think you made a great film. I want to see what you do next, and you guys seem like great guys. It's so funny. You guys had this 50-year relationship, it's still going strong, and you're making films. And
yeah, Jose was the. Oh, thank you. Yeah, Jose was the first DP I worked with, because before that I always shot my own stuff or taught a buddy how to hold the camera if I had to do something else. Jose was a TA, so he was my first TA in film school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk again soon. Go Ohio State. Go Buckeyes, I guess is the best way to say it. And that's where all started from. That's so great. Okay. All right, I appreciate your time, and let's talk again when we showcase another film of yours.
Okay. And when does this? You post this? When can we tell